Hey all, thanks for joining again. Today I'm going to be talking about PowerShell objects. Um, an object in PowerShell or in any programming language is kind of like an abstract to describe a value or combination of values that are stored together. So there's different object types, or there's generic types as well, just flat objects, which could be multiple different types of things. So you can think of it as a description for something. So most objects, they have properties, and then they can also have what they call functions or methods attached to them, and it's a way to describe something. Um, so if you think of like a pencil, a pencil would have an eraser, a lead, and then you can have the length, the manufacturer. So all these things are properties or descriptors for an object. Um, I think that's the easiest way to kind of explain it. We'll kind of start off here in the simplest form and just see what they are. And yeah, so first one I'll do is just a string, and we'll just call this a string. And we're going to assign it a value hello world. So basically what's happening is we created a string object and assigned a value to hello world. Um, so you can then call that and use that object, um, and we're storing it in a variable, right? So the object it's a string object, but it's stored in a variable string. So we can reuse that variable by just calling it. So in PowerShell, you have to use a delineator for the $sign that designates a variable. So when we run that, you can just see here it actually just prints out to the screen hello world. Um, so you can also do, they have a commandlet for printing information to the screen. So we can do like, um, your variable, and then my name is just cube, right? And what that'll do is then compound the variable and also output the string that we put after it. You can also do that in this way as well. Should do the same thing, but right host is a little more clear on what you're trying to do, and later when you get into returning objects or information from a function or method, you would want to explicitly write host instead of returning this as part of the um, information that you're returning from a function or method. So now that we have a string, we can also do compound operators, so we can add to the string. So we can say string equals string plus another portion. So we can do for instance, what we did before with the right host, and also just adding it to a quoted string. You can use a conditional or a operator to compound the string, and this can also work with integers. So again, you don't have to define the types. I'm just using the object types so you understand that we're working with that type. I could also do it just by the assignment. So PowerShell, if we just did int like this and assigned a integer value, um, you would then be able to use that in a mathematic operation. So you can see here 0 plus 1 is then 1, and it's output here. I'll also leave these other examples just to have a more clear delineation of what we can do with all this. And also we can just write this out as well. Yeah, I think I like that. So that's strings. I'll just mark it. So now we're working with integers, and we can just mark that as integer. Again, you don't have to do that, I'm just doing it for example purposes. Should be able to do this as well. It returned it as a actual string value. So this might work. Yeah, so this wrapping in parentheses actually outputs the value then, because it computes it and then writes it to the screen. So those are integer values. There's all different types of object types for numbers. There's floats, decimals, and all of those would work in the same manner. Let's see. What else can we talk about for objects? Right, so we'll actually start using, I guess, commandlets to get objects. So we'll get item path. So what we're going to do is run the commandlet. It's built into Windows. Get item. Clear this out here so you can see what we're doing again. So when I run this, okay, so you can see that the get item returned basically values that we would want to potentially save as an object and then reuse them. To do that, again, you just declare a variable. So we'll call this one path, or folder maybe, might be a better one. So we can then reuse folder and access properties that are assigned to that object. So if we do get item again, down here, and do format list, so FL star. So this just expands all the properties attached to an object. Again, properties are like descriptors for that object. So this is a commandlet to get an item, and it's getting a file system item on the system, and then it's returning the information about that. So it's an attribute type directory. It has all sorts of different information here that you can actually reuse. So full name. So right here we are getting the item, and then we're returning the full name. Objects. Yeah. So when we run that, oops, scroll down, you can see that we use the property full name for the folder. There is also custom objects. So we can do custom object, and you can kind of create your own objects with PowerShell. So equals, let's just PS custom object, and you can see our tabbing out in VS Code automatically gives you a base object. So you can assign a name and value pair type object creation. So for this one, we'll just say, type my custom object, and we can do what we described earlier, I guess. Might be a little bit better. So pencil, eraser equals, I guess we'll do the texture, not sure, or the type, color of the pencil, let's do lead color, red, eraser color, sure, white, eraser material, color It's a yellow pencil. Yeah. So we just created a custom object that is a descriptor for a pencil. And then you can see here, once we use that, we can start calling the different properties that we added to the object. So eraser material, eraser color, lead color, oops, and color. All right. So, and then we can return the actual pencil itself. So this returns it as a whole object, and this just outputs the values. And we'll just label this. Yeah, so I mean, that kind of wraps up what objects are, how we can use them, how to access them. I can go into greater detail, but this is kind of just meant to be a basic video of what objects are, how we can use them, and the benefits of actually storing them in variables. It just creates reusability, and you can start actually chaining commands together in scripts or modules then later on. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to upload this to GitHub. The link will be in the description for other examples as well that are in my other videos.